to welcome you all for another topic of iFSS, and we're talking about basic home studio setups today. You'll have to just chill with us because we've been kind of on jet lag.
Yeah.
Some of us are coming back from vacation, and some of us just ain't been doing nothing. But we're going to bounce back and get it back together.
Yes, we are. All right.
So, just to give you a little rundown, I'm DjAirWax. I'm going to be discussing controllers and environments, studio environments.
Nice.
Who's next?
I'm MeekPoitier in London, and I'm going to be talking about studio interfaces and some basic outboard gear to get you started.
Word, I'm SippEazy, and I'm going to be talking about basic studio setup, microphones.
Right on, right on. It's going to be a good show. We actually recorded this show earlier, about a week, 2 weeks ago, but problem with Blab. They didn't give us our video. They wouldn't contact me to fix the problem, so we're just not going to use Blab anymore. We decided we're just going to do all of this video stuff on Google Hangout. Seems to be working better for us. So that being said, I'll just go through 6 points for a studio that should matter to you and are very important. One being a strong computer, whether it be a laptop or a desktop. It has to be something strong. You can't just have some wimpy gear like a $200 computer. It's not going to cut it. You'll be getting lots of crackling, popping, lag on your performance. You guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You want to buy the most that you can afford for a computer. Obviously, with it being central to your studio, it needs a lot of processing power. So the more money you can spend on RAM and the actual processor speed of the computer, you'll be better off. And obviously, you know, I prefer Macintosh. Some others prefer PCs, but I don't think I'm going to go down that rabbit hole of Mac versus PC.
Definitely.
But, you know, I can vouch that the stability of the Mac is unsurpassed. Really, I've never had any issues with it. No major conflicts with plugins. The only time there is any kind of issues is when you update the actual system, the OS system. If the plugins haven't been worked on to be compatible with the latest system, that's where you may get a problem. So one useful tip for that is if you're not running the latest machine with the latest software, then before you actually update to the newest software whenever it comes out, hang back a week, a couple of weeks, and let others with more sophisticated machines see how the plugins handle, because then it gives time for the actual third-party manufacturers that produce plugins to update the plugin. So then when you do eventually update, then you're not going to have any conflicting problems with software or things like that. That's all I sort of want to add, really, for computers. I don't know if Sip wants to add anything.
All right. Word. Yeah, I got a little bit. What I would say about computers is basically reiterating what these guys said. That's the brain of your operation. That's the central nervous system of your operation. And one of the basic things to focus on is not cache, but after you get the computer, staying organized and having enough to run your studio. Those are two of the major things that I would point out is staying organized as far as when you're installing stuff on your system, and just having the right amount of memory to build up your song catalog, beat catalog, or whatever kind of catalog you're building at the time, to have that actual memory available.
Good points. Okay, getting into number 2, a real good audio interface, as it helps your computer and takes the workload off of your computer. Anybody want to add something to that?
Well, I can go into a little bit of depth into that. Do you want me to go into that now, or shall we wait till we've gone through?
Yeah, because you're actually doing a topic on that. So yeah, let's just wait.
All right, okay.
Okay, getting into number 3, you're going to need a very, I don't know about a very good, but you're going to need reference monitors that are actually set out for studio to be referenced on music sounds. When you're sound designing, when you're creating beats, you need reference monitors. A speaker is designed totally different. It's more to sound beautiful and pretty, which is already treated to sound that way. Whereas monitor is just flat, you're getting it right from zero autonomy. Number 4, you're going to need some kind of a controller, whether it be keyboard controller or machine controller, MPC controllers. There's lots of controllers out here, you know, and you can also use controllers to control your sound MIDI, lighting. What else do they control with that? Audio. And that's just a few things you control with your MIDI controllers. Number 5, I would say a pair of reference headphones. And of course, you're going to need some good XLR cables or MIDI cables. And be picky about that, because you can buy a crap pair that carries some bad signal and it will just crap your whole day, along with your sound.
Absolutely. I can't stress, just before we start going into the topics in detail, I can't stress enough how important good quality cables are. Because if you don't have good quality cables, it doesn't matter what gear you have, you're going to get the best that the bad cables can give you. So if you don't invest in good cables, all your gear is just a waste of time investing money in. You might as well just record it on your iPhone as a demo. You know, switch your iPhone on, record a video, YouTube video, playing guitar, singing, rapping, whatever, beatboxing, banging on pots and pans. You might as well do that, because that's the best that you're going to get. So invest in cables. At least research, you know, that the cables are the minimum of what they call noiseless cables. So if you rattle a cable or hit it or it moves, that it doesn't cause interference with other things. You can't hear the taps on the cable. Those are things to sort of look out for.
Mm-hmm. Good points. Okay, who wants to start? Should we just go through this and do like one topic each, or you want to go do 2 topics each?
I think the most important part is a computer. I guess that would come first, right? Or nah? Just go down.
Kill it.
Sorry about that.
I would also like to say that we just started a podcast. What is that? We got a little echo delay there. We just started a podcast channel.
I've got to look as cool as
we'll
you
be
guys.
advertising that web address for you guys in a couple of days here when we update the website. So yeah, on this podcast, we're going to be putting all our shows basically in audio format. You know, if you're driving to work and you ain't got time to watch us, you can listen to us.
Absolutely, it's a great idea.
Okay, go ahead, Sip.
Okay, well, I'm starting off with mics. I didn't have much on the computer reference. I'm going with my mics, unless you wanted me to just talk about the computers for a little bit.
Well, I'm doing controllers and environment.
All right, well, I don't mind. I know a bit about the computers. I can rattle off something on the computers.
Okay.
All right. We briefly mentioned in the intro about the points about computers and things, and like all the guys said, you know, just to reiterate that the computer is the most important thing within the studio. So you must buy the best that you can afford, and as Sip mentioned as well, make sure that you have some budget for other things as well that you're going to need, which we'll highlight as we go through. But at least half of your budget should be put towards your computer. So in terms of talking about budgets, if we're talking around about $1,500 for your whole studio budget, that will get you a good basic studio that covers everything. So you would want to spend at least around about $800 to $1,000 on a computer that would be able to handle audio. Now, that kind of budget will buy you a new or the latest Mac, okay, the Macintosh computer. Now, it depends what you want. I prefer iMacs. They are a bit more costly than other versions, but with an iMac, you have a lot of space saving. Now, when you start off as a basic studio, everything is about space. In terms of physical space, you know, you're in the corner of a room or your bedroom or in a very small room. And space is very important when you're talking about monitors, instruments like behind me, you know. So an iMac is quite a good way. Now, the reason I mention iMac rather than a laptop, there's nothing wrong with laptops. In fact, there are advantages to having a laptop. It's powerful. You can carry it around, so you can mix on the go or you can have ideas on the go. So it's very good for that. But what you want is a desktop version, which an iMac is good for, because when you mix, you want to have as a controlled environment as you possibly can. That means an environment without too many bouncing frequencies or too many reflective surfaces. So, and for me, I would always advise to have an iMac rather opposed to a laptop. That really comes from your choice. So for around about $1,000, you can get the latest Mac with the latest software and with a few additions, such as extensions to GarageBand and things like that. Basically, that sort of covers your PC, your Macintosh PC things. Of course, you know, the difference between a PC and a Macintosh is all integrated, whereas a PC you can build it and customize it to what you want. Just sort of backtracking a little bit, I mentioned earlier about having the most powerful processor that you can afford and the biggest or largest amount of RAM that you can. The reason for processor speed and power is that when you're within your DAW, that's your digital audio workstation, such as we use Infamous Foreign Sound Society, we use Studio One. We all have that, so we can work together as a team seamlessly. So if that's your DAW of of choice, then the higher the processor you have means that you will be able to use the most amounts of plugins. So if you discover a style that you like to process your signal, so you're doing rap or you're doing beats and you like to add loads of echoes and delays and reverbs, EQing a lot of things, and that addition to those plugins on one channel can be very processor intensive. So if you don't have a large enough processor, then the computer won't be able to cope with that amount of processing that needs to be done for the signal to work. And in terms of RAM is important because you need a large amount of RAM to hold your samples. So if you've got an instrument like Native Instruments that is very RAM intensive, for example, if you're running a horn section or a full orchestra section within that, then you need lots of RAM within your computer to be able to load those samples in quickly. So if you're playing on a keyboard or a controller and you're pressing loads of notes at the same time and it's triggering loads of samples, then you need to have all those samples already loaded into the RAM of your computer, so then the computer can access that and fire those samples at the correct time. If you don't have a large amount of RAM, then the computer will struggle, even though if you may have large processing speed, it will struggle because it will need to load those samples into RAM and fire out other samples to make room for them, and that can slow down your whole computer. Now, where this is critical is when you first start your DAW and you connect an audio interface to it, you will see you'll have sample rates. Now, if you don't have a large enough processor and large enough RAM available, then your sampling will be affected. So normally you get like 1024 samples all the way down to like about 560, and depending on the quality of the signal that you want, then obviously the higher the samples you have, the higher the quality of the actual sound that you're going to be able to record, because what that means is that it records that number of samples per second. Okay, so you got 1,240 samples is going to give you more detail than 560. Now, if you don't have enough processing and RAM, it won't be able to do that. Basically, that's it. I think that covers everything with computers. And other options. Sip, you can talk about your setup, because you have a different setup. I have an iMac. Wax has an iMac, but you've got a Mac Mini. Talk about your setup and how that works for you.
All right. Well, my Mac Mini, it works. It's a little different. Like, say for instance, when you are talking about an iMac or just a regular PC or anything like that, Mac Mini, I came with less USB ports than a bigger computer. So that's one thing to take into note, as well as a laptop as well. So a laptop is a lot of power. Mac Mini as well is a lot of power. Less USB slots to use, and when you're in a home studio, digital studio, you need USB slots. So that's one of the problems that I have occurred having a Mac Mini, but it was a small fix as far as just getting a USB hub with 3.0 power output on it, and connecting my other USB on there. As far as switching, I just recently switched from a PC to a Mac Mini, and I mean, it was dang near seamlessly a switch. Understanding the system was very easy to understand. The RAM in it, I got eight what is it, 8 megabytes? Eight
Gigabytes.
Gigabytes of RAM in there, and yeah, my bad. I hardly ever am using all of my processor speed, and I do load up a lot of virtual instruments and use machine all at the same time. And I'm not, like when I was on PC, I couldn't do that without getting this static sound out of my monitors or whatever I was
I remember that.
I was getting this static.
I remember that.
Pissing me off. So that's one of the great things about switching to this Mac Mini. Gets a lot of power output.
Yeah.
And it's very small, and you don't have to worry about space.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, it's a great stepping stone from, like you say, from being old PC to then converting to a Mac. It means that you can still use your old gear, like your interface and your monitor and things. So you can already use that. So what you're buying with an iMac Mini is basically is a hard drive that works, that a system will run. So you're buying a machine without a computer screen in a small version, and that's really, as Sip says, it's excellent if you're space bound, and if you're space bound, if you're space restricted, it's another great solution if you've already got a monitor and things. Yeah.
And it's definitely great for a basic studio setup. It's a great,
absolutely,
great computer for that.
Guess we should go into studio environment.
Go ahead, Wax. That's yours.
That is mine. So yeah, when you are considering a home studio, you want to think about your surroundings, whether you be via your main floor or your second floor or you're in the basement, you know, because every part of the house is going to give you a different sound. Like in your basement, you're going to get that hollow, very hollow, dungeony sound that you are never going to be able to get rid of. But you can treat the area with Orlax foam. It's very cheap, it's affordable. They have it in all types of different grades. Also, you can do stuff like what's that called? Diffusers and stuff like that. Bass traps in the corners, and all this stuff will kill a lot of that unwanted noise that you do not want.
Yeah. Well, we see that. So
Go ahead, Meek.
Sorry, I was saying we can see some diffusers behind you, the green ones.
Yeah. And I had to make those, actually. I made those by hand, me and a partner of mine. And only about 200, 250.
Yeah.
What's the sound difference? I wanted to ask you that. Like, did you notice a sound difference to putting the panel up, putting the sound?
Oh, right away. It just deadened all that reverb. Even if I like go walk back there, you can feel the air suck out of your ears.
Yeah, it is. It makes a massive difference. It's like walking into a room. I mean, I've got some. There's some there that I made, and one over that side there. Those are diffusers, and I've got some at the front end that you can't see that's behind the camera, and some other bass traps.
Yeah.
And basically, it just sucks everything out. But what a diffuser does is it just bounces frequencies in different ways. So it adds a depth to a wall. So basically, as a frequency hits, some of it will keep traveling and other bits will stop. So it stops the frequencies all hitting the wall at the same time and bouncing back. And otherwise, it makes a real mess. So you need things to diffuse it, but you need ideally non-reflective things to diffuse it. If you have reflective things, you get what they call a very live sound. It's like when you clap. When you clap in an untreated room, you hear a very sharp snap and then an echo. If the room is treated and you have diffusers in there, you will still hear an echo, but the snap will have gone. Okay, it reacts kind of differently, and between that and then bass traps and other acoustic treatment, then yes, it sucks out all the frequencies in terms of it deadens the room somewhat, and it really. I'll let Wax talk more about the environment, because I'm sure he's going to explain the difference between a live room and a dead room. Back to you, Wax.
Even like in this basement, I was lucky enough that the people that lived here before me, they started framing the basement. So I went and I got some fabric that was breathable and just stapled it along the walls. And it does what it does. Works good. Keeps the bugs out too. Yeah. So where was that?
In terms of a live room, while I catch up, live rooms basically are called live rooms because normally that's where you would put a drummer playing live, and you would mic up the drum kit and you would record it. And a live room has character, and what you're doing with a live room is you're recording the character of the room to color the sound that is being recorded. So in the case of I'll give you a good example. Led Zeppelin famously recorded one of the bass drums on Kashmir was apparently in an elevator shaft where you had the big boom. And the fact that the microphone was in the elevator shaft with the bass drum and the drummer kicking that created this big sonic boom kind of sound that was very unique. And you can clearly hear that the way that the drum travels. Now, if you would have recorded that in a normal studio room, in a small kind of dead environment, for example, like a vocal booth type scenario, then the drum would have sounded completely different. and you would have got the pure drum kick sound, and you would then be worrying about what type of beat you're using, a plastic, felt, or wooden, and that kind of thing. But the fact that he used a live environment, which in this case was the elevator shaft, he added character to the actual recording of that bass drum, and it'll give it a specific character. So that's the reason why we would use a live room, not only for drums, but for orchestras, for pianists, for that kind of thing. If you guys Google anything on professional studios in Google, and you look under images, you will see images of pianos in the middle of rooms where it all looks empty, with wooden varnished floors, or a bricked wall or stone wall, and then everything all acoustically treated, and sometimes in just like a big warehouse type space, like a film studio almost. And that again is to give character, and it's very typical when you record a classical pianist to have it in a large room. So the acoustics help the piano, help the whole sound, the swell of the sound, become more natural and rich. So use that live room to give you a natural reverb, rather opposed to treat it digitally, or use what they call traditional plates, which we'll get into in another podcast in future. That's the live room. And then of course you want a complete dead room on the opposite end of the scales to record, say, vocals or something like that, if you're a rapper. Okay, because what you want is, you just want the voice. You don't necessarily want to give it too much character of the room, but you can, of course, if you're recording a gospel singer or a soul singer, it might be quite nice to have them in quite a lively room, again for the same reason as the piano, for that kind of swell of the natural sound to really give the power. But if you're doing spoken word or that kind of thing, a dead room is great.
Totally. A couple other things to consider when you're considering in a home studio is like your environment outside of your house, like, because birds chirping, loud vehicles, if you're close to a highway or something, all that stuff might get into your studio and cause problems. That definitely will affect your music, your vocal recordings, things like that. Let's say you had a family of 3 upstairs, single mom with 2 kids, and those kids are 2 in 1, and you know what they're doing. They're running around all day, bang, 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 bang. You ain't recording nothing.
Yeah.
So these are some things you want to consider also while you're considering the home studio.
Yeah. At best, you're going to pick those up on your mics. You'll probably lay down an amazing beat, and it'll sound great, and you want to rap over it, and you feel inspired, especially if you're a rapper and you've got some bars to lay down. You start going for it, and you're really feeling it, and then you play it back, and then you can hear, oh, this sounds great. But then in the background, quietly, as you higher up the sound, you start to hear these kids running around, shouting and screaming. You think, what the hell is that? And again, that can just, as DjAirWax says, it just kills the whole vibe of the recording. And once it's on there, it's very difficult to get rid of. So you're best to avoid it. There are a few tricks to do that. I'll give you one of them, which was mentioned by one of the joiners last time, Disciple Die. He mentioned, the classic moving blankets. So normally you can find these blankets from a furniture removal company, or people that come and help you move house by moving your furniture and things. They normally have those old dust sheets, which are normally compressed fabric ends and things like that. There is a specific word that I just can't remember now, but you can buy them relatively cheaply. So if you are in a noisy environment outside of your studio, you can hang those up inside your studio like curtains. That's quite a common use that people do. Get a curtain rail, put some holes in the blankets to be able to put some rings through, and then hang them up like curtains and try and close your studio in. That will do 2 things for you. It will cover up many reflective areas and also prevent some sound from coming in, because obviously the frequencies can't penetrate the blanket, so you may be able to dampen those things. But in terms of what Wax was saying, if you live below somebody, then it's a hard time. It's going to be difficult to cover that, but you can try hang something from the ceiling, or even you can go to an extreme of using a bed mattress. If you wanted, try to create a vocal booth with 2 bed mattresses, and you can balance it somehow and put one over your head, and that will stop some of the foreign noise actually getting into your recording. So that's one way of doing it. But you remember, it's studio basics. You're on a budget, so you have to do things like that. Think creatively, think outside the box, experiment. But those, I think, are the basic things that you can do to cut out external noise, both in and out of your studio.
Take it back to hustle and flow. Go get some milk. Those little drink carton. Hang them on the wall and dampen your sound.
8 boxes in the UK,
yeah. Okay, that's for environment. Who wants to go next?
Word.
I think it's Sipp now with monitors, I think. Are you doing monitors, Sipp, or mics?
I'm doing microphones, right.
Yeah, go ahead with mics then.
5 mics for you guys, and I guess I'm gonna start with the first one right here that I'm talking on. It's a dynamic microphone. It's made by a company called Shure. It's an SM58, and the frequency response rate is from 50 Hz to 15,000 kHz kilohertz, and the polar pattern is a cardioid dynamic microphone. The impedance rate is 150 ohms. If you need more information, I have a blog there. What information would you guys want to know specifically about an SM58 that I didn't mention?
Well, one thing I'd just like to add for that, uses for SM58, really good for recording vocals. The studio standard microphone, preferred by a lot of rappers, possibly not necessarily just for the sound, but possibly because it's an affordable basic mic that gives you quality results. And it's studio quality mic. You see a lot on stage. It's used very often on stage because of the warm qualities that it has. So that's why Sipp says SM58 is a good basic mic. Everybody that has a studio or is thinking about recording in a studio should at least own one of those. You can use it to record instruments with as well, but it's predominantly used for recording vocals.
Word. The connector type on that is a XLR, so that means you will need a audio interface to connect to your computer.
Preamp.
That's a preamp. So that's a 3-pin male connector. Other than that, I mean, it's a very lightweight microphone. It's not that heavy. It's about, I would say, like 10 ounces or whatever. It's a great microphone for what it does, and it doesn't pick up a lot of that background noise, like we was mentioning earlier. All of that background noise, those reflections of the sound, it doesn't pick up a lot of that. The next microphone I'm gonna discuss is, I guess they call this one, I think it's the little sister, or I think it's the little sister of this microphone, of the SM58, and that's the SM57. It's very similar in the makeup of it, being it's a dynamic microphone, and its polar pattern is a cardioid, and its frequency response is 40 hertz to 15,000 kilohertz. The size, it's about the same. It's around 9 ounces, 10 ounces. And basic difference is the way that it's made. It's made a little bit different from the first microphone that I mentioned. The same connector type. It's a 3-pin connector, and you want to have a preamp or an audio interface to go into that. That's a great starter microphone. It's not the greatest, but it's a great starter microphone for a basic setup.
Yeah.
How long those
That
mics been out, yeah?
Say again?
How long those mics been out?
How long have they been out?
Hmm.
I think the SM58 came out in 1965.
Damn, boy, and it's still rocking.
Yeah, it's still going. It's not changed. That's a
Have they
game changer.
upgraded it or anything?
Well, they made newer versions. They have newer versions of those microphones, but they haven't had to upgrade or change their microphone.
So it's still the same first mic, the same design.
Word, that's correct.
Wow, that's crazy.
I mean,
And the
one
other,
of the things, just to interject here on what the SM57 is used for, that again can be used for vocals, but the quality of the mic compared to the SM58 is although the frequency range is greater at the lower end, it is it's not as warm as an SM58. This is why it's used predominantly to record instruments. Now, SM57 sounds great if you're wiring up a guitar cabinet, or you use it as a second mic in a room. It can also be used for bits of drums, recording certain drums and things, although you'd use proper drum mics for certain things. But the SM57 works quite well, hi-hats and things like that. But yeah, again, it's a standard microphone, and it should be on your next to buy list if you've got an SM58. So as Sipp is rightly saying, get an SM58 first, then get an SM57 if you're recording instruments. Now those are both dynamic mics, which means that you need a strong preamp to put enough power in them so that they pick up the frequencies. And how a dynamic mic works is, see this piece of paper? What it is, it'll be like a little cone on top of like a tube, and every time you speak into that little, there's like a little nipple on it, and every time it speaks, it goes in a little bit, and that is what picks up the frequencies. Okay. And you need quite a lot of power, obviously, to be able to make an indent in that. So obviously, when you boost the signal, that picks up any kind of little tiny little things in there. So it works like that as a dynamic mic, as opposed to a condenser mic, which I'm sure Sipp's going to get to at some point soon. So back to Sipp.
Right. Well, I'm gonna say one more dynamic, so I'm gonna keep them all categorized in the dynamic section, and my other dynamic is another Shure microphone. It's the SM7B. It's dynamic, cardioid, polar pattern is cardioid, and the sensitivity is negative 54.5 dB. The impedance is 150 ohms, and great microphone if you're into that hip hop sound. If you're a male rapper, this microphone picks up those frequencies that you wanted to pick up. Anybody got something to say about an SM7B?
Well, I think you've more or less covered it.
All right, cool.
Again, it's slightly different sound than the others. But yeah, I think you sort of mentioned it. I mean, what would you use to record that vocals? Would you record any instruments with it?
I would more or less record vocals with it. I would stick to vocals with that, but you can record instruments with it as well.
Right. Okay.
And those microphones are kind of like a double knockout. When you can knock out instruments and vocals or bands at the same time with a single microphone, that's like a two-punch combination. The next microphones I'm going to get into are condenser microphones, and I stuck to the basic condenser microphones, which a lot of producers stand behind. The first one I'm going to mention is the Audio-Technica 2020. A lot of producers mention this as far as a basic setup microphone. You could take it with you, or you can have it set up in your studio. Its frequency response is a little bit different from the others. It starts at 20 hertz, and it goes all the way to 20,000 hertz, which gives it a little bit more sensitivity. Sensitivity setting is 144 dB.
That's that phantom power for you.
That phantom power, and that's you want that the connection type is also XLR. And you want to connect that into your audio interface or preamp, and you get a great sound. And this is one of the times where you want to have your room deadened, the sound deadened, and not have all of those frequencies bouncing around, because it'll pick up everything damn near. Okay,
Very
my
sensitive
last microphone. Okay, you guys have anything to say about condenser mics? My bad, I didn't.
Yeah, I'll explain to you how they work. Right, you know we mentioned the dynamic was like that with a little nipple on top, normally with a tube underneath. Condensers work differently.
Way different.
They have to. That's right. They have to be powered. Okay, so you need. They can't just work on a preamp signal. They need actual power into them, so electricity, to make them more sensitive. Now the reason for that is because the condenser mic is like a thin sheet, okay, normally within a circle. It's a little bit different than a ribbon mic. A ribbon microphone is more sensitive, and you cannot use power with that because you'll blow the ribbon. But the condenser pattern is on various mics is different than normal cardioid dynamic mics, in the sense that you face it one way and it will pick up anything in that kind of direction. Normally, condenser mic can have quite a much wider space. Hence, when it's powered, it picks up everything within that space. Whereas a dynamic mic, you have to be quite close to it for it to pick up full strength of the signal. But the condenser microphone works almost like you speak into it, and it's like a little ribbon. It's not a ribbon, but it's like a small piece of paper that picks up the vibration and it wobbles, okay? And that is how it works. The ribbon microphone, similar kind of thing, but it's a much thinner piece of paper and it's much more sensitive. Now, ribbon mics would be used for soft vocals or for things that have very small nuances to them, for something that's not a big blast, okay, such as some hard rock vocals or something like that. But a condenser microphone is great for recording instruments and recording room ambience as well. Often they're used as room mics to record the sound of the instruments being played loud. If you remember earlier, I mentioned about live rooms to do with pianos and things like that. You would normally record a piano with a condenser microphone because it's more sensitive than the dynamic microphone. So it picks up a lot of smaller things than the dynamic. And obviously the big difference is that it has to be powered by electricity, which is what Wax mentioned, which is phantom power. And you'll normally see those on your audio interface where you press a button and that adds electricity to the signal and causing the microphone to be more sensitive. Basically, that's a very quick breakdown of a condenser mic. There are other things, but
sometimes the condenser microphone is so sensitive that you have to pad it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's all. What Wax means by padding it means that the amount of volume, because you've got phantom power on there, instead of having it raised really high, so the signal is boosted, you can actually have the signal much lower. And by putting a pad on there means that it automatically cuts the signal from anything between 2 decibels to minus 12 decibels on top of your sound. So if you're recording at plus 12 decibels for a dynamic mic, when you change the microphones, put a condenser in, press the phantom power, and then press pad. If you've got your input knob set to 12 and the pad is minus 12, it basically will take the volume automatically, pad it down to 0 decibels. So then you get just the volume in. So because it's sensitive, like Wax says, sometimes you will use a pad to cut the noise that goes in there.
You need that for loud rappers.
Yeah.
Loud rappers that want to get in the microphone.
That's right, yeah. So instead of turning that knob, just press the pad button.
Yes.
And it gives you what the pad is. It allows greater headroom. Okay, so it allows you to reduce the volume further than what you would normally do with just the knob. So it's a quick fix, but it's how you do it.
Okay.
How you do?